Hello, my name's Dave Lyon. I'm founder of Big Picture SI, a social impact consulting firm located here in Austin, Texas. I'm delighted to have this opportunity to talk to you about data for program design improvement. Today, I'm going to talk about the high leverage that focusing on program design and improvement efforts provides. I'll talk about how influential the design stage is on program impact and how this stage is cost-effective and allows us to be more accurate in our schedule predictions. I'll describe how the data you need for design improvements is often different from the data collected for operational improvement and from data for reporting to funders. I'll wrap up with some suggestions for gaining support and funding for program design improvement activities. What I'll be sharing with you today comes from lessons I've learned both from my 14-year career in the high-tech industry and from my experiences founding a nonprofit and advising philanthropists. My focus in all those areas has been what makes large-scale change effective, whether it's a corporate re-engineering effort, a nonprofit project making a difference with a community, or a funder identifying nonprofits that will make that difference. So why the focus on program design? One of the main reasons is the dramatic effect that design can have on program impact. For example, the transition from the continuum of care model for addressing homelessness to the housing first model has had a huge effect, increasing the proportion of participants that remain in stable housing by a factor of 4. Similarly, studies have also found that the best programs working with at-risk youth reduce recidivism twice as much as the average program does. Once we've targeted an improvement to one of our programs, we'll find that the design stage is a particularly high leverage step in that process. Adequate investment in the design stage can be very cost effective, as it minimizes the number of corrections that need to be made in the much more expensive downstream stages. Good design also provides enough detail that the project schedule can become much more predictable. Here we see charts taken from the software development industry, whose insights from studying the development process for decades are applicable to many other development processes. So, what sort of data do you collect for doing program design improvement? To start, for many organizations, just collecting the data required by various grants can consume all or most of their data resources. Certainly, some portion of this funder-required data can be used for improvement efforts, but it generally does not provide all the data needed to evaluate and revise the program's design. The best way to resolve this, I've found, is to invest early in your ability to lead funders on data by suggesting to them a well-thought-out data collection plan that incorporates data for program improvement. Data that supports program design efforts will typically focus on measuring outcomes of interest to individual participants and outcomes that the community has achieved, also referred to as impacts of the program. Now, to keep our outcomes align with the impact goals that we have for our program, we're best off working from the right-hand side of the logic model towards the left. Start with the program mission and use that to define the impacts that we expect the program to make. Based on these impacts, we can then identify individual long-term outcomes that participants will achieve on the way to creating that impact. And then we can determine the short-term outcomes that support achievement of the long-term ones. The logic model is also an excellent place to begin our evaluation and data collection plans. We can think of this as instrumenting our logic model, clearly identifying for each outcome what we will measure it and how we will measure it. A key thing to remember about how we measure outcomes is that in order to show that your program made a difference, outcomes need to demonstrate change or a delta from when participants started the program. Example from an after-school program helps make this clear. Capturing students' school grades will be a natural outcome measure, but even a high average GPA among participants is not necessarily indicative of a program that made a difference. This might simply be the grades these students were getting before the program. What's necessary in this example is to track both current grades and baseline grades for individual participants, and then to compare them to get a measure that truly demonstrates improvement from participation in the program. Even better, as far as measurements for program design are concerned, is to measure the delta between current and baseline performance and measure it correlated to their participation. In other words, finding that students that participate more hours in your program have a larger positive grade delta on average is a real outcome measure that shows a difference made by the program. All right, let's wrap up with a few ideas for how you can get support for program design improvement efforts from management and from funders. When asking funders to support program design improvement efforts, focus on the potential to increase their social return on investment. Philanthropists that are keenly focused on impact are very motivated by opportunities to increase social ROI, and many of them already know about the leverage that the design stage has over program impact. When pitching program design improvement efforts to management, the foundation of your appeal is, of course, their desire to make the biggest difference possible in the community. This is where stressing the high leverage of the design stage in creating and increasing program impact sets the stage for the conversation. But management is also likely to need some shorter-term motivations. And here, a focus on the competitive advantage in fundraising that a best-in-class program enjoys can be very effective. And not only do funders like to fund the most effective organization, they also like funding organizations that continuously improve. So the ability to show improvement, even if not best in class yet, can itself win grant proposals. Finally, taking the time to do a brief literature review can help you position your program with respect to the other competing programs working on the same issue. Well, I'd like to thank all of you for watching, and until next time, keep making a difference.